The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, polished marble floors, and the sound of laughter echoing from every corner. It was the annual corporate gala of Winslow Enterprises, the kind of event where people wore tuxedos and glittering gowns, where business deals were whispered over champagne, and where appearances mattered more than anything else. But in the midst of the glitz and noise sat a girl who seemed invisible to everyone else. Her name was Emily Winslow, the CEO's daughter. At only 19, her life had been marked by tragedy. A car accident a year earlier had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Once full of light and energy, Emily now found herself confined to a wheelchair, watching life from the outside. She wore a pale blue dress that evening, her hair pinned neatly, her eyes shining with hope that maybe someone, anyone, would treat her like she mattered. But as the music played and couples danced, people walked past her without a second glance. Some smiled politely, most avoided eye contact altogether. At the head of the room stood her father, Richard Winslow, the CEO himself, a man of power and reputation. He loved his daughter deeply, but he was consumed with keeping up appearances. He invited her to the gala hoping she'd feel included, but he noticed how people skirted around her, pretending she wasn't there. It broke him inside, but he didn't know how to change it. Across the room, near the servers' tables, stood a man who didn't belong to the world of tuxedos and diamonds. His name was Michael, a single dad in his mid-30s, working as a janitor for the company. He hadn't come to mingle with executives, he had been asked to fill in for a catering assistant who called in sick. He wore a plain black vest and tie, carrying trays of drinks, careful not to draw attention to himself. But as Michael moved through the crowd, his eyes caught Emily's. For a moment, he saw not a girl in a wheelchair, not the CEO's daughter, but simply someone who looked heartbreakingly alone. He recognized that loneliness because he had lived it himself. After his wife passed away 3 years ago, raising his little daughter Lily had been a struggle. Nights were long, money was short, and he often wondered if life would ever feel full again. Something stirred in him. He watched as Emily's eyes followed the dancers on the floor. Her lips curved faintly when the music swelled, but no one invited her. Not even once. Setting his tray aside, Michael walked slowly toward her. His heart pounded. After all, who was he to approach the CEO's daughter? But something stronger than fear urged him on. He stopped just in front of her chair, smiled gently, and asked, "Excuse me, would you do me the honor of being my date for this dance?" The room seemed to freeze. A few executives turned their heads, whispering. Richard Winslow raised his eyebrows in surprise. Emily's cheeks flushed, her eyes widening. "No one's ever asked me that," she whispered. Michael knelt down so he was at her level. "Well, then maybe tonight should be the first time." Emily's trembling hand slipped into his. And in that moment, Michael didn't see the wheelchair, he saw a young woman who deserved to feel beautiful, to feel wanted, to feel alive. He wheeled her gently onto the dance floor. The music softened to a slow melody. At first, people stared. Some even scoffed quietly, as though this wasn't proper. But then, something happened. Michael twirled her chair gracefully, moving in rhythm with the song. He laughed with her, guided her hands as though she were leading him, and for the first time in a long time, Emily laughed, really laughed. The entire ballroom grew quiet, watching them. Some with surprise, some with tears in their eyes. The CEO himself stood frozen, his heart swelling. His daughter's joy shone brighter than any chandelier in the room. When the music ended, the room erupted in applause. Emily blushed, overwhelmed, and Michael bowed playfully, as though she were the belle of the ball, which, in that moment, she truly was. Richard Winslow walked up, placing a firm hand on Michael's shoulder. His voice trembled as he said, "Thank you, for seeing my daughter when no one else did." Michael simply smiled. "Sir, she deserves the world. I just gave her one dance." Emily looked at her father, tears brimming. "Dad, for the first time since the accident, I felt normal. I felt like me again." Her words broke him. Richard knelt beside her, hugging her tightly. Around them, people wiped their eyes. In a room full of wealth and power, the richest thing anyone had witnessed that night was kindness. And in that single act, Michael, a single dad who worked quietly in the background, taught an entire room of executives what true dignity, compassion, and humanity looked like. As the night ended, Emily whispered to Michael, "You'll never know how much this meant." But he did, because kindness has a way of changing not only the one who receives it, but also the one who gives it. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life happen not in boardrooms or under chandeliers, but in the quiet courage to look at someone overlooked and say, "I see you." And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because more stories like this are waiting for you here, stories that restore faith in humanity.